This one's a wild one. You are talking inflation and how big data could change how we measure it. Big data.
So the data that we have about inflation, in fact, the data that we have about a lot of things, we get from the U.S. government. And what they do, for example, the BLS to calculate their CPI numbers that measure inflation, they send economic assistance out and to physically record prices. They go into stores. They make calls. They're tracking 80,000 items. These are hundreds of people. It takes all month to do it, right? So there's a different way to do it. There's the Billion Price Project at MIT, and they've been doing this for a while. And what they do is they scrape data off of web pages. It's imperfect because there's a lot of stuff that's not sold online, but increasingly stuff is sold online. So they're pulling this data down, and they're looking at it, and they get a different inflation measure. So there's one way that we can look at this. Let's look at Argentina, where the trend in inflation is obvious, right? So if you look at the official Argentinian numbers, not that dramatic. If you look at the scraped data from the Billion Prices Project at MIT, there's a clear discrepancy there, right? So, I mean,
it's like twice as high.
It's twice as high, right? So The Economist now actually does not publish official Argentina statistics. It actually publishes the Billion Price Project because they're seen to be more accurate. But if we look at the U.S., there's a difference there as well. So the U.S., it's not quite the outlier, right? It's not as if the BLS is lying to us about inflation, but we get a different result, right? So when we're looking at this online index, that's in the yellow there, we're actually much farther in deflation than the official BLS numbers would have us believe. So
the yellow one is the online there.
The yellow one is the online. You know, we've got Gary Vaynerchuk here, and I pulled this idea in particular because you were coming on, and there's this
he
broader...
loves inflation.
Crowd
He's into it.
But there's this broader question.
I think Gary Vaynerchuk. I think BLS. I think U.S. government data. That's your jam.
Guys, real quick. So what you're saying is a ton of data versus a couple of hundred people running around and documenting prices.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. I'll go with the data.
This is exactly. That's why I did. But I mean, there is an active conversation about this, which is
the traditionalist who lived forever in a world of 100 people documenting on a yellow pad like yours want to hold on to that world because that's their ecosystem.
There's one more reason to it. So you're completely right.
Do those couple hundred people work for the government?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're not actually running then. They're actually walking at a slow pace and taking a lunch break.
But here's what's going on. So that's absolutely right. The more data, more accurate, more options, often better economics. There's one issue, which is that we need these time series that go back very far. We can't do that with the online scraping. We can do that with the BLS data. So it's not a perfect substitution.
It's not that it's a perfect substitution. It's a new proxy. Of course we can't go backwards. We have to let it play out. But at some level, common sense needs to become a bigger part of the conversation in the world. Like, when you have that much data at your access, that's what evolution is, and that's just the way it is. I'm sure cavemen played it differently.
Yes, Gary, but mature businesses, it's very difficult for them to make that shift.
Yes, that's why big businesses go out of business.
But, you know, there's another way. There's Space Snow, which is doing something fascinating, which is actually using satellites, big data, to track factory orders in China, right? So we can get the official data, you know, the Purchasing Managers Index from China, or we can look at trucks coming in, trucks going out, whether they're loaded.
Okay, I wanted the Neanderthal here, all right? Going back to cavemen. Listen, I think this is great. Big data is terrific. That's wonderful. I think there's some value in the government actually taking a look at the data and making sure they're right. For example, I don't know the methodology that they're using at MIT. And data, as we know, is pretty complicated. A lot of it's pretty dirty. And
you can make it say what you want.
Clean it up. You can make it say what you want. So there's some value, at least in the government, having some say-so on vetting the quality of these data.
I would agree with you, and I think it's entirely possible that within the next 5 years we could have a BLS online scraped price index, right, that supplements the data that we're already getting.
Some hybrid.
So we have this long time series but increased accuracy. But we're learning all sorts of new things about economics. For example, in theory, when a country joins a currency union, prices should already be perfect, right? But, you know, what we know from scraping data is that the second that new countries join the euro, their online prices suddenly become more even because you have this price transparency.
I think what we know is they need a new term, scraping data.
Okay, so only on Bloomberg Go can we get the most excited about inflation data. That's what really gets us stirred up. So, Brendan, thank you very much for the big idea.